Hello, welcome back to Me, Myself, and I channel. Realize the great I am and step into your destiny, and then like and subscribe. Today we'll be continuing the Paradoxes of the Highest Science by Eliphas Levi. However you say it. I say Levi because it sounds more. Today we'll be continuing into the next section of the book, which is Synthetic Recapitulation. The next section, the very first part, is Magic and Magism. This should be interesting. The name of magic, after having been so dreaded and so execrated in the Middle Ages, has become in our days almost ridiculous. A man who seriously occupies himself with magic will hardly pass as a reasonable being unless set down as a physician and a quack. Credulous folks suppose that all magicians are workers of wonders, and being moreover convinced that the only saints of their communion have the right to perform miracles, attribute the ideas and phenomena of magic to the influence of the devil or evil spirits. For our part, we believe that the miracles of the saints and those which are attributed to demons are alike the natural results of causes which are abnormally brought into action. Nature never disturbs herself. Her standing miracle is immutable and eternal order. Moreover, magic must not be confounded with magism. Magic is an occult force, and magism is a doctrine which changes this force into a power. A magician without magism is only a sorcerer. A magist without magic is only one who knows. The author of this work is a magist who does not practice magic. He is a man of study and not a man of phenomena. He does not claim to be either a magician or a mage, and he can only shrug his shoulders when he is taken for a sorcerer. That's funny because he wrote a book all about magic and rituals and all that, but I guess that was after this work. Continuing. He has studied the Kabbalah and the magical doctrines of the ancient sanctuaries. He feels that he understands them, and he sincerely believes in and admires them. To him, they are the most noblest and the truest science that the world possesses, and he deeply regrets that they are so little known. For this it is that he seeks to make them better known, taking only the title of Professor of the Highest Science. The science of magism is contained in the books of the Kabbalah, in the symbols of Egypt and India, and in the books of Hermes Trismegistus, and in the oracles of Zoroaster, and in the writings of some great men of the Middle Ages like Dante, Paracelsus, Trithimus, William Postel, Papanicius, Robert Flood, etc. The works of magic are divination or prescience. Thaumaturgy, or the use of exceptional powers, and theurgy, or rule over visions and spirits. One may divine or predict either by observations and the inductions of wisdom, or by the intuitions of ecstasy or sleep, or by calculations of science, or by the visions of enthusiasm, which is a species of intoxication. Indeed, Paracelsus calls it ibricatum, or a species of ebriety. I guess inebriating, the way it feels. The states which are connected with somnambulism, exaltation, hallucination, intoxication, whether by alcohol or drugs, in a word with all classes of artificial or accidental insanity in which the phosphorescence of the brain is increased or overexcited, are dangerous and contrary to nature, and it is wrong to attempt to produce them, because they derange the nervous equilibrium and lead almost infallibly to frenzy, catalepsy, and madness. Divination and prediction by mere sagacity demand a profound knowledge of the laws of nature, a constant observation of phenomenon and their correlation, the discernment of spirits by the science of signs, the exact nature of analogies, and the calculation, be it integral or differential, of chances and probabilities. It is useful to divine and foresee, but we must not allow ourselves to divine or to mix ourselves up in predictions. A prophet interested in a matter is always a false prophet, because desire deranges sagacity. A prophet disinterested, that is to say, a true prophet, always makes himself enemies, because there is always in this world more evil than good to predict. The occult sciences should always be kept hidden. The initiate who speaks profanes, and he who knows not how to keep silence knows nothing. Noah foresaw the deluge, but took good care not to predict it. He held his tongue and built his ark. Joseph foresaw the 7 years of famine and made his arrangements, which secured to the king and priests of all the wealth of Egypt. Jonah foretold the destruction of Nineveh and fled in despair because his prediction was not accomplished. The early Christians predicted the burning of Rome, and Nero, with some appearance of justice, accused them of having set it on fire. The sorcerers of Macbeth drove him to regicide, Why tell him that he would be a king? Regicide, I guess. Prophecy seems to attract evil and often provokes crime. The Jews believed that the glory of God was involved in the eternal preservation of their temple. To predict the destruction of this edifice was blasphemous. Jesus dared to do this, and the Jews, but the day before had spread their garments beneath his feet and decked his path with branches and palms, cried all with one voice, "Let him be crucified." Indeed, but it was not for them that the Savior had made this prediction, but for the small circle of his apostles and faithful followers. Unfortunately, it became public and served as a pretext for the judicial murder of the best and most divine of men. If we can predict exactly and certainly when eclipses are to occur and comets to return, why should we not be able to predict the periods of the greatnesses and decadences of empires? Being given the nature of a germ, do we not know what kind of tree it will produce? Knowing the motor, the impact, and the obstacle, we cannot determine the duration and extent of the movement. Can we not? Okay. Read the book entitled Prognosticatio Eximi Docti Theophrasti Paracelsi, and you will be astounded at the matters that this great man was able to foresee by combining the calculations of science with the intuitions of a marvelous sagacity. One may predict with certainty by help of calculations of science, and with uncertainty by help of a sensitively impressionable nature or magnetic intuition. It is the same with miracles. These are astounding phenomena because they are abnormal and are produced in accordance with certain natural laws as yet unknown. When electricity was still a mystery for the multitude, electrical phenomena were miracles. Magnetic phenomena astonish at the present day the adepts of Spiritism, because science has not yet officially recognized and determined the forces of human magnetism, which is distinct, according to our view, from animal magnetism. It is not yet known to what extent the imagination and will of man are powers. It is evident that in certain cases nature obeys them. The sick suddenly recover health. Inert objects change their position without any apparent motive force. Visible and palpable forms are produced. The cause of all this is God for one set, the devil for the other, and no one reflects that God is too great to condescend to conjuring tricks, and that the devil, if he exists, as portrayed in legends, would be too intelligent and too proud to consent to be made ridiculous. All exclusive religions rely on miracles, and each attributes to the devil the miracles of its opposing faith. Okay. In this latter, they are all to a certain extent right. The devil is ignorance, and the demons are false gods. Now all false gods perform miracles. The true God works only one, which is that of the eternal order. The miracles of the gospel are the wondrous operations of the divine spirit related in an enigmatical style, as is the custom of the ancients and of the Orientals especially. I need a drink. That spirit changes water into wine, that is to say, indifference into love. It walks on the waters, and with the word stills tempests. It opens the eyes of the blind and the ears of the deaf. It makes the dumb to speak and the paralytic to walk. It resuscitates humanity buried for 4 days, that is for 4,000 years. It shows it in its putrefaction like Lazarus, and ordains that it to be released from its bonds and from its shroud. Such are the true miracles of Christ, but if they ask him for prodigies, he replies, "An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall be no sign be given to it, but that of the prophet Jonas." Here the Master gives us to understand that the miracles of the Bible are also allegories. Jonas issuing alive from the fish that has swallowed him is humanity which regenerates itself. Jesus gave to the Jews as incontestable miracles the holiness of his doctrine and the examples of his virtues. Jesus may have certainly have healed the sick, since Vespasian, Apollonius, Gasnier, Mesmer, and the Zouave Jacob have also healed the sick. Sick people too may have been healed at Lourdes as the tomb of the deacon Paris, but such cures are not miracles, they are the natural results of a certain exaltation in faith. Jesus Christ said to himself, "Can you cure me?" asked a certain sick person. Jesus Christ said so himself. Oh, it says Jesus Christ said so himself. "Can you cure me?" asked a certain sick person. "If thou canst believe," said the Master, "all things are possible to him that believeth." Faith produces certain apparent miracles, and credulity exaggerates them. When Jesus said that all was possible to faith, he did not mean by this to say that the impossible could ever become the possible. The impossible is that which is absolutely contrary to the immutable laws of nature and to the eternal reason. Every man is a magnetic focus which attracts and radiates. That attraction and the projection are what are called in magic the inspiration and respiration. The good inspire and respire good. The wicked attract and respire evil. The good may heal the body because they make the souls better. The wicked do harm both to souls and bodies. Often the wicked attract good to corrupt it, and the good attract evil to change it into good. Thus it is that at times the wicked seem to prosper, whilst the goods are victims of their own virtues. But they grossly deceive themselves who fancy that Tiberius at Capri was happier than Mary at the foot of the cross of her son. What pleasure, nevertheless, was wanting to Tiberius, what suffering to Mary? And yet how happy a mother, how miserable an emperor! Wow, what a paradox. Honey changes to gall in the mouths of the wicked, and gall into honey in the mouths of the just. The innocent man sacrificed is deified by his punishment. The guilty man, triumphant, is branded and burnt by his diadem. Let us now touch the dangerous and darkness-shrouded coasts of magic, the intercourse with the other world, the contact with the invisibles, the theurgy, and the evocation of spirits. Everything proves to us that there exist other intelligent beings than man. The hierarchy of spirits must be infinite as that of bodies. The mysterious ladder of Jacob is the biblical symbol of this hierarchy, ascending and descending. God rests upon that ladder, or rather he sustains it. We may say that the ladder is in him, or rather that it is he himself, for it is as a God, and to manifest God, that the infinite ascends and descends. I got something for you. The ladder is within us. It's the Kundalini ladder. It resembles DNA. And it's like two coiling snakes going up and down inside of us. Okay, that the infinite ascends and descends. At each rundle, the spirit which rises is equal to the one that descends and can take his hand, but he still must needs follow him who ascends in front of him. This is a law which those who make evocations should seriously meditate. To ascend eternally is the hope of the blessed. To descend eternally is the threat that weighs upon the reprobated. Men invoke superior spirits, but they can only evoke inferior spirits. They can only evoke, okay. Superior spirits whom men invoke attract them upwards. The inferior spirits whom men evoke draw them downwards. Invocation is prayer, evocation is sacrilege, except when it is a very dangerous devotion. But the rash mortals who plunge into evocations have no thoughts of making the spirit whom they call ascend with them. They want to lean on it to rise by, and must necessarily lose their balance in leaning on what is descending. The spirit which descends is as a load to him who would raise it, and it necessarily drags down him who abandons himself to it. To renounce the reason, to follow the inspirations of a phantom, this is to plunge into the abyss of madness. The great epic of theurgy was that of the fall of the ancient gods. Maximus of Ephesus invoked them before Julian because men had ceased to invoke them. They had sunk below even the reason of the common people. Also to Julian they appeared thin, poor, and decrepit. Julian, fanaticized by the magic of the past, wished to take these infirm immortals on his back, as Aeneas saved his father from the conflagration of Troy, and the arrogant philosopher fell under the burden, of his gods. We cannot see the gods without dying. This is one of the most formidable axioms of ancient theurgy, for the gods are the immortals. To see them, we must pass out of our plane into theirs and enter into their incorporeal life. And if this be possible without dying, it is only so in imaginary or fictitious manner, or by an illusion resembling that of dreams. We must conclude that every apparition which we survive can only be a dream. When a vision of the other world is real, either the seer dies, or rather is already dead when he sees it. This which we write has assuredly no sense for the learned materialists who do not believe in another life, but these are compelled, in defiance of all evidence, to deny the phenomena of magnetism and spiritism, and cannot therefore be sincere. The true savants are those who believe. Oh God. Fuck. That was awful. Just cut right through my fucking face. Okay, we'll continue. The danger lies in believing without knowing. For them, one believes in the absurd, that is to say, in the impossible. The old French language had a word to express rash belief. It was the verb coiter, whence is derived our word outcredescence, which signifies a ridiculous and presumptuous confidence. Theurgy is a dream pushed to the most terrifying realism in a man who believes himself awake. It is attained by weakening and exciting the brain, by fast meditations and watching. Asceticism is the father of nightmares and the creator of demons, the most grotesque and deformed. Paracelsus thought that real larvae might be engendered by the nocturnal illusions of celibates. The ancients believed in the existence of daemons, a race of malicious genii who floated about in the atmosphere. St. Paul seems to admit these when he talks of the powers of the air against whom we have to fight. The Kabbalists peopled the four elements and named their inhabitants sylphs, undines, gnomes, and salamanders. Young, hysterically disposed virgins in the Middle Ages used to see white ladies appear near springs. In those days, they called such phantoms fairies. Nowadays, when the same phenomena repeat themselves, people are persuaded that the Virgin has shown herself on earth, and they found churches and organized pilgrimages which still bring in a great deal of money despite the decline of faith. We must not insist in matters of religion on enlightening the multitude too soon. There are people who could no longer believe in God if they cease to believe in Our Lady of Lords. Let us believe the consolation of the dream to those who do not yet know bow to apply the remedy of reason to their ills. Illusions are better than despair. It is better to do good through a misconception than to do evil through the weakness of a rebellious reason and anemia of the conscience. Moses, in causing the construction of the Ark of Alliance, made a concession to the idolatry of the Jewish populace, and the golden calves of Samaria were later only counterfeits of the cherubim of the Ark. These cherubim or cherubim were two-headed sphinxes. They were two cherubim and four heads, one of a child, the other of a bull, the third of a lion, and the fourth of an eagle. It was a reminiscence of the gods of the Egyptians, Horus, Apis, Cyrus, and Hermamphita, or whatever. Symbols of the four elements and signs of the four cardinal points of the heaven, they served as emblems of the four cardinal virtues: prudence, temperance, strength, and justice. These four hieroglyphic figures have remained in the Christian symbology, and they have been made, the insignia of the four evangelists. Well, they stole it. The Christians stole it from the Egyptians and the Greeks and gave it to their own mumbo-jumbo. The Catholic Church has condemned the breakers of images, and yet well knew the images are but idols. The word idol in Greek signifies nothing else but an image, and the pagans no more believed that a statue of Jupiter was Jupiter than we believe that an image of the Virgin is the image or is the real Virgin in person. They believed, as we do, in a possible manifestation of the divinity through such images. They had, like ourselves, statues that wept and that rolled their eyes and sang at sunrise. We have, like them, our mythology, and the golden legend might form a sequel of the Metamorphosis of Ovid. Nothing destroys itself in the universal revelation, but everything transforms and continues itself. The manifestation of God produces itself in the human genius by successive approximations and by the progressive changes. God is also the ideal of human perfection, which grows in grandeur as a man raises himself. God did not speak once to hold his peace ever after. He speaks as he creates always. Torquemada and Fenelon were both Christians and Catholics, and yet God of Fenelon resembles in nothing the God of Torquemada. St. Francis of Sales and Father Garrigous do not speak of God in at all the same manner, and the Catholicism of Monsignor Dontploup hardly bears any likeness to that of Louis Vinelot. The Protestants have leveled everything. They have denied all that they could not understand, and they hardly understand what they affirm. But Revelation does not retreat. She is not impoverished, but adds always something to the mysterious riches of her dogma. The Ragma is to throw light on the obscurities of the Bible, redouble the darkness in the Talmud, and the Christian ages have given, as a sequel to and commentaries on the incredible accounts of the Gospels, the impossible legends of the lives of the saints. To those who deny the infallibility of the Church, we reply with the infallibility of the Pope. Always the enigma is made more complicated to prevent fools from guessing it, for all dogma is a philosophical enigma. Trinity, or the three in one, signifies unity, incarnation, or God made man. That signifies humanity, redemption, or all lost through one and saved by one, but that indicates our mutual interdependence, the solidarity of the race. Unity, humanity, solidarity. This will all be the trilogy of the future specific solution of the revolutionary problem: liberty, equality, fraternity. Truly, it is the social unity alone that can guarantee the liberty of nations by creating universal rights. It is before humanity alone and not before nature that men are equal, and it is the mutual independence or solidarity which alone proves fraternity. But how many ages must elapse before these truths, simple as they are, will be understood? Catholicism is official occultism and rests entirely upon mystery. The secret of the sanctuaries has been profaned, but has not yet been explained. Oedipus thought to kill the Sphinx, and the plague fell upon Thebes. His hostile brothers still fight and slay each other once more. The grand symbols of the past are the prophecies of the future, mysteries and miracles. Such must be the religion for the masses, whom it is essential to make feel keenly what they do not understand. so they may permit themselves to be led. This is the secret of the sanctuary, and the mages of all times have understood it. The weak can only remain united under the surveillance and responsibility of the strong. The strong emancipate themselves. If there had been any shepherds, if there had never been shepherds, there would be no tame sheep. If dogs were free, that is to say wild, they would have been hunted like wolves, and truly the vulgar are either wolves or sheep. It is servitude alone that saves them. The great secret of Freemasonry is nothing else than the science of nature. It has long since been divulged, but people still swear to preserve it eternally, thus rendering homage to the eternal principle of occultism. The true initiates are shepherds and conquerors. They raise the sheep and conquer the wolves. This was, in the beginning, the sublime mission of the church, but in the sheepfold of the Lord, the wolves have become shepherds and the flocks have led away. Much like the preachers of this time and the idiots that go to their church. The true church must be one and not divided into numerous sects. It must be holy and not hypocritical or greedy. It must be universal and not restricted to a privileged circle that repels almost the whole of humanity. In a word, it must attach itself to a common center, which in the Roman world was Rome, but which is no more irrevocably Rome than Jerusalem. The wind bloweth where it listeth, said the Master, and so is every one that is born from the Spirit. Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. The Catholic Church ought to be the house mother of universal indulgence. She does not tolerate merely, she absolves. She ought to excommunicate religious hatreds and bless even her children who have strayed. It is through the Catholic faith that all sincere believers, no matter what creed they profess, belong to the soul of the Church, provided they practice natural morality and seek the truth in the sincerity of the heart. Let only a pope appear who will gladly proclaim these consolatory truths and invite all the natures of the earth to a universal jubilee, and a new era will dawn for Christian religion. This was in the late 1800s. They had not yet founded the Baha'i Temple and the Baha'i faith, which is a universal one world religion that exists now. And they have a temple in Chicago, which is beautiful and gorgeous and has like wealth of information and wisdom in it. And it's all about combining all the systems, all the people of the world together in one, all in agreement and unity together. If only he could have seen the foundation of that in his time, he would know it, that it was true. Glory to God and all that is great, and peace and goodwill to men on earth. It was by this cry of universal love that the genius of the Gospels announced in the old days the birth of the Savior of the world. The official church represents the occult church, as the castes of society represent the natural hierarchy. The priests, the nobility, and the people represent the men of devotion, the men who are superior in intelligence, and the men who are inferior. The true priests of humanity are the sincere philanthropists. The true kings are the men of genius, the true nobles, the men of intelligence and lofty sentiments. The common mass is the great flock of the voluntarily ignorant and poltroons. A simple soldier faithful to his flag is surely greater than a marshal of France who betrays his country. An honest rag picker is more noble than a vicious prince. Eminent men in all departments have risen from the people, and kings and queens have been sent dragging themselves through the mire. Every intelligent and virtuous man may deserve admission to the highest initiation. The profane are only fools or knaves. Knaves. The initiate is a man of no party. He desires only unity, mutual indulgence, and peace. He has no opinions, for truth is not an opinion. For him all hostilities are errors, and all curses crimes. Before the abuses of the Romish Church, protestation is a right and consequently a truth, but Protestantism is a sect and therefore a falsehood. Catholicity, that is to say universality, is the character of true religion. It is therefore a truth, but Catholicism is a party and consequently a falsehood. When abuses have ceased, protestation will no longer have any reason to exist, and when Catholicity have been established throughout the world, there will be no more Catholicism at Rome. Catholicity is like saying, bring the world together as one in a one world religion. All gods are the same. Buddhist, Hindu, all of them, Muhammad, all of them are all the same. They're all meant to be united. That is true Catholicity or whatever. Catholicity. And there will be no more Catholicism in Rome because it'll be everywhere in the entire world, which is now called Baha'i, the Baha'i faith. In the meantime, as one cannot live respectably without religion, and as it is impossible and absurd to stand alone in religion, since the very word religion signifies a thing that binds men to one another, each can and ought to follow the usages and rites of the communion in which he was born. All religions have a respectable side and a defective side. Let us no more break each other's idols, but let us lead all men gently out of idolatry. One must learn to endure patiently in Catholic churches the noise of the ceremonial and of the halberd of the Swiss, to weary oneself in all gravity and respect in the Protestant temples, to keep serious in the synagogue and the mosque, despite the muffled heads of the rabbis and the contortions of the dervishes. All this must have its time. One religion passes away, but religion itself remains. One man dies, but humanity dies not. One woman ceases to love or to be lovable, but woman is ever worthy of respect and love. One rose fades all too soon, but the rose itself is an imperishable flower and blooms anew in every spring. Let us make use of religions for the sake of religion, love men for the sake of humanity, and women for the love of woman. Let us seek the rose amidst the roses, and we shall never find deception or despair. That right there sounded like the age of man approaching. All that he just said right there sounded like the age of Aquarius is dawning. God man, it's time to realize God man. But because we are men, we must not insist on the children being men. We must not beat them because they fall, nor use them harshly because they do not understand things that are above their age. We must not rob them of their punches and their dolls. They adore them. Later they will break them. Mama will give them others, and Papa will have nothing to say. The sacred books of all nations and all times have been collections of fables. They are the books and pictures made for the instruction of children. They are generally collective works resuming all the knowledge and all the highest aspirations of one people and one epoch. They are sacred as monuments should be, and worthy of respect as is the memory of ancestors. The divine spirit has assuredly inspired them, but inspired them to men and not to gods. They reveal God as the tree which grows reveals the seed planted in the earth, or as the rising dough reveals the hidden leaven. This double comparison is borrowed from Jesus Christ himself. Oh, really, huh? Then I guess we're all God then, aren't we? Are you smart enough yet to realize I am? We have said that the absurdities of dogma are enigmatic. They are even more systematic. The great initiates of the ancient world never explained their symbols except by obscure symbols. Gods will too be divine because divination is divine, and as the words itself sufficiently indicates. The riddle of the Sphinx is the trial of all neophytes, and the three-headed dog watches always at the portals of the crypt of the mysteries. In religion, to explain is to profane. To make more obscure is to reveal. Oh, wow, that makes so much sense. Like, give them some space. Give them some space to be able to breathe and see through. Don't nail it in like as a declared statement or fact. Science and religion are as the day and night. If reason be the sun, faith is the moon. In the absence of the sun, the moon is the sovereign of the heavens. Let us, however, not forget that it is from the sun that she borrows all her rays, and that true faith can never be absurd except in seeming. Science has she not to her mysteries. Escape if you can out of the labyrinth of the infinite. Do indivisible molecules really exist? Endeavor to conceive substance without extension. If, on the contrary, matter is infinitely divisible, one grain of dust may, in the infinity of time, by the infinite number of its parts, equal the infinity of space. Absurdities on all sides. Ask Morphurius, he desires to explain that the polychronic evolution of analytical concepts in the relative is equal to the isochronism of the synthetical concept in the absolute, and he thence concludes that the syncretism of the abstract is analogous to the syncretism of the concrete. Capricious Arcturian. What? That was crazy. The mysteries of faith are borrowed for the most part from the mysteries of science. For instance, is not light one in three rays of different colors. In its triplicity, that is, it is blue, yellow, red, and its unity, it is white. This trinity gives 7 shades of color. Here that we have the sacred septenary. Light produces as regards... Whoa. It just broke off. Light produces as regards the little problem which EO invites Western mathematicians to explain. It is simple enough. I wonder why it broke off right here. There is no mystery in it. It is a necessary premises. First, the hypothesis involved in the description, to speak mathematically, of the figure we call a circle, the equality of all radii, and second, the hypothesis that we're to use only equal circles. The proof is too long to insert, but it all proceeds from the known geometrical facts that where 2 circles touch, the line joining their centers pass through the point of contact, that where 3 circles touch, the 3 lines joining their centers compose an equilateral and equiangular triangle, that the interior angles of the triangle are collectively equal to 1/2 of the angular extension round a point, and that each angle of an equilateral triangle is equal to 1/6 of this and that consequently only 6 such triangles, exactly this number and no more, can radiate from any point, that though the first belt may look circular, the second and succeeding ones cannot be constructed according to the terms of the problem except as hexagons, when again the properties, also the result of hypothesis of construction, of the equilateral triangle come into play, and thus it is perfectly easy to demonstrate that, not as a matter of mystery, but as a result following necessarily on the adopted principles, if there be in belts, then the end must contain 6 in discs or circles. What the hell? How do we go from talking about colors and prisms of light to this? They obviously must have deleted something in the middle there. It seems useless to argue with the Eastern adepts from the time of the gymnosophists who taught Pythagoras. They have always verbally at any rate confounded things and their symbols. There is nothing sacred in the number 7. It is a memoria technica of hidden combinations, etc., which combinations, etc., are or may be held to be sacred. But as for the symbol 7 or the word 7, there is nothing sacred in either. The sanctity, or if any, pertains to the mysteries they recall, and in no way to the symbol or word. Had our language called 6 plus 1 pig, or used as a symbol for this, then pig, and would have been as sacred as 7 and 7. On the other hand, to those who ridicule and reject the facts of the occultists on the ground that, according to them, the universe is built up upon one numerical system, and that everything is in 7s or 3s, it may be useful to point out that even in this little world of ours, we have instances of the persistent adherence of nature to particular numbers. Thus 3 and multiples of this rule the inflorescence of all indigens, and 4 and 5 that of all exogens. And thousands of other instances can be given, so that the general rejection of occult views of the universe on account of symmetry in them, which is over hastily concluded to be unnatural and therefore artificial and false, is not really warranted even by our little learning. And as to 3 and 7, the latter grows necessarily out of the former, since 7 is the greatest possible number of products of 3 things taken, 1, 2, or 3 together. As for the 7 impostors, demons, these were also considered by some to represent the cycle of necessity which, according to them, beginning with Mars, ran through Jupiter and Saturn to the Earth, and thence through Mercury and Venus to the Sun. But though Tibetan Brotherhood tells us that man does not pass hence first to Mercury, they tell us that the planet on which we lived immediately previous to our advent on this Earth was Mars, and their account of the worlds that make up our cycle of necessity is quite different from that above referred to. But though, according to this latter, Saturn, and not Mars, was the planet from which we last came, it does not follow the planet we call Saturn was really meant, or that the several planets to which occultism has attached the signs, they misspelled it, signs and names of the planets known to the astronomers of old are really these very planets. On the contrary, as a rule, it may generally be concluded that when occultism says anything, it means something else. Words like the names for the planets, precious stones, minerals, plants, etc. had always 2 meanings. One, the palpable, obvious one, which, if accepted, leads entirely astray for the uninitiated. And the other, the artificial one, which gives the real fact for the initiated. This is what has, and I maintain rightly so, brought more discredit on occultism than anything else, and which must engender disbelief in or contempt for it in the world at large, as long as it is persisted in. But the adepts of all schools have always been so tied down by the falls and spiritual conditions, which it therefore no longer remains in a man's option to subsequently disregard of the successive initiations, that they can, in many matters, not save in this deceptive phraseology to those not initiated, and these in their turn, as they progress, become by the immutable laws of the association to which they belong, similarly tongue-tied and mind-bound, and as so many things, the only hope for the world at large lies in the gradual development of the higher races on earth, who will, untaught in these schools, work out anew their knowledge for themselves, and untied by laws and conditions now rapidly becoming an anachronism, give freely of all their store to all men. In this direction, the authors of The Perfect Way have made the first important step. Of course, as to many matters, witness the facts that given in the introduction, the adepts can speak more plainly, and are nowadays some of them not so unwilling to speak as they have always hitherto been. But there remain the highest and most important laws, of which I am informed they neither will nor can speak, save only to those who have been initiated, and are therefore ever precluded from revealing the truth to any non-initiated. Non-initiated, period, trans, something. Forms. And then it just picks up some random sentence. Forms, it is incarnate in living things, it dies to revive, and buys back each morning our hemisphere from the slavery of the night. Dupuis concluded hence that Jesus Christ was the Son, a fine discovery. It is as though one professed that a sphere of cardboard was positively the universe. Religion is a force which escapes from the impious and against which they break themselves. Punch will never succeed in killing the devil, for the devil is a caricature of God, and this caricature belongs to those who have made it. It remains in their eyes, it fascinates and pursues them. If all the blind could coalesce to exterminate those who can see, could they even then extinguish the sun? The masses are blind and foolish and must be led by the seers and the sages. But when those whose duty it is to lead the blind become blind themselves, when the keepers of the mad go mad themselves, these results fall in appalling disorders. This is the history of all revolutions. The use of brute force to repress disorder provokes the inevitable and terrible reactions when that force has not the support of justice and truth, for then it becomes fateful and balances necessarily action by reaction. War authorizes reprisals because in war, according to the cynical saying of a great German diplomatist, it is might that makes right, and indeed despotism, whether of kings or mobs, is war. The authority of the law and the empire of justice is peace. Social unity is the end and aim of civilization and transcendental politics, an end at which from the time of Nimrod all great conquerors and profound statesmen have aimed. The Assyrians, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, all sought to absorb the world. Bacchus, Hercules, Alexander, Caesar, Peter the Great, Napoleon had no other dream. The popes thought to realize it under the name of religion, and it was a grand idea. But Germany nowadays opposes mathematics to the enthusiastic onrush of beliefs and swells day by day her exchequer. The emperor, one of the two pillars of this world, is now again erect, and he is no longer Roman. Rome on one side, and on the other the whole world. The balance is no longer equal. We should necessarily require a cosmopolitan pope when we had a universal emperor. See, they just used religion to war and establish power. That's it. That's the only reason. High magic is at once religion and science. This alone harmonizes contraries by explaining the laws of equilibrium and analogies. This alone can make sovereign pontiffs infallible and monarchs absolute. The sacerdotal art is the great royal art. And Count Joseph de Maistre was not deceived when, despairing of extinguished beliefs and enfeebled powers, he turned his glances, against his will, towards the sanctuaries of occultism. It is thence that salvation will come, and already it is revealing itself to the most advanced intelligences. Freemasonry, which has so frightened the court of Rome, is not so terrible as people think. It has lost its ancient lights, but has preserved its symbols and its rites, which belong to occult philosophy. It still gives the titles and the ribbons of the Rosy Cross, but the true Rosicrucians are no longer in its lodges. They are what that have been from the beginning philosophers and unknown. Paschalis, and Martinus of St. Martin, stuff is gross, have successors who do not meet in regular assemblies. Their lodge is said to be in a great pyramid of Egypt, an expression allegorical and mystical which the innocent and ignorant are at liberty to take literally. There is one thing more incontestably infallible than the Pope, and that is mathematics. What? Where do we go from there to mathematics? Oh, more infallible than the Pope, and that is mathematics. Okay. Truths rigorously demonstrated force the mind to suppositions which we may call necessary hypotheses. These hypotheses, if I may so express myself, are the scientific objects of a faith. But the imagination, exalted by an infinite want to believe in love, draws incessantly from this rational, objective, paradoxical deductions. To curb license and mystic fantasies, there must be an authority touching reason on the one side and mysticism on the other. This authority, dogmatically infallible, has no need to, and cannot, be so scientifically. Science and faith are the two columns of the temple they support in its portico. If they were on the same side, the structure must fall on the other. It is their separation and parallelism which should be eternally maintain equilibrium. The comprehension of this principle would put a stop to a misconception of too long standing and would bring peace to many souls. In truth, between science and faith, no real antagonism can subsist. All that has been demonstrated becomes unassailable, and it is impossible to believe in what one knows positively not to be true. Galileo knew that the earth turned, but he knew that the authority of the church is unassailable because the church is necessary. The church has no authority in matters of science, but can oppose with all her power the dissemination of particular scientific truths, which she judges to be the moment prejudicial to faith. People very generally believed in Galileo's time that the popularization of the system of Copernicus would give the lie to the Bible. Forced later to admit that system because it was so demonstrated, it became a course of necessary to find means of reconciling the difference. The earth in fact turns, but the church remains infallible, even when it declares that it is no longer itself, but our Holy Father the Pope, who is infallible. So as you can see, this is about halfway done with this paragraph, or this chapter. He was definitely living in an older time, because now we've embraced science in full capacity. But the only thing that is still quite ancient is religion now. Like, it's just grown outdated and ancient. I mean, they still use the fear tactics. They still want to make you feel bad and do all that. They still want to promote their own power, and that's just over your mind. I mean, there is no church that has power over anyone these days. Just your mind. Like, all they can do is twist your mind to make you feel bad and try to scare you with fires of hell, and some big superstar celebrity devil is gonna come like the boogeyman at night and take your soul away. And then they profit off of it. And at the end of the day, they count their money and they profit off of it. Religion is dead. Like, there's no need for it. What needs is restructuring. There needs to be a restructuring and an embrace of a more universal cosmic religion where all people are embraced and can unite together, because the true strength of power is when we can all unite and come together. And that's liberty, that's justice, that's the bouncing of the pillars. So you all have a great day.